Things we learned from Chelsea versus Newcastle. Sorry, it's a few days late because I have been away this weekend, but we're going to quickly get into what we learned because we've also got a cup game coming up, which is tomorrow now when I'm filming this. And we need to get the Premier League game reviewed, and we've got a bit of a PowerPoint on this right-hand side, which we're going to go through. Here we've got the team stats from the game. More pass completion, better possession, better territory, which is a big one. A lot of the play was in their half, more of it being able to actually sustain that pressure at times. They created 9 chances and 2 of them being big chances, so they did have their chances in the game, and we're going to speak about why sort of between the 60th and 30th minute they had that. We sort of saw this sort of shape from Chelsea in this sort of three. It was almost a 3-2-5, but with this Pentagon midfield, which we're going to speak about, and the 2 wingers holding that width and pinning the Newcastle opposition back, they were the outlets. We've also got this little quote here that on this little intro screen that I've made of Enzo Maresca. I really love, and like Reece, I was saying the other day, I expected more from the captains. From Reece and the other guys inside the pitch, he's a top player. And this little section here is the interesting bit, because I actually predicted this the other day that we could see, I didn't predict the Reece to left back thing, but Cole in the left pocket. And the reason was to try and attack that side and have Malo in the right pocket on as an 8. And Maresca thought that worked very well. And this was something we said the other day of either having Reece or Malo Gusto in that right-sided 8 pocket and Palmer as that left-sided number 8. So that was interesting. But how did the game go? So we're just going to go through, as we have been, sort of speaking about what unfolded in the game. So as you can see, very early on, the precedent is set. These 2 wingers are going to pin these players back high and wide. Again, Jackson pinning one of the defenders. These 2 players, Gusto and Palmer, in those pockets, they're going to find space. And if one of them is tracked by the DM of Newcastle, the other one is going to have to be picked up by one of the Newcastle defenders stepping out. So you can see that kind of leaves that 3v3 on the back line. And again, in the middle of the pitch, you've also got 1v1s here. So very aggressive from Newcastle, going with that man-to-man approach. Again, from goal kicks, you can see it here too. Man for man, all over the pitch, high up. This leaves, again, the 1, then you've got the 4 of Newcastle that we spoke about in the preview. So outside of the picture, you've also got the DM of Newcastle or the other midfielder, making that 1-4-1. 3 phases of pressure. With this, Chelsea are then able, Gusto's being pinned as well, and this is the DM who's actually coming out to sort of track him, leaving Howe and the 2 other defenders here. And I think it's Shah in this instance has stepped out with Jackson. Once Jackson spins him, you've got a 4 versus 3 essentially, and you're attacking that back line because Jackson was able to often come into this space when someone like Gusto dragged the other man out here or Palmer dragged the other man out here. Because as we said again in the preview, when Newcastle go for this sort of 5-man pressing scheme up close and trying to press Chelsea in heavily, that will leave whoever that number 6 is basically occupying both Palmer and Gusto, who are playing either side. So that was really clever from Maresca to have them to manipulate that number 6 of Newcastle and play to the opposite side and allow Jackson to drop in and sort of receive in that space and really kickstart those Chelsea attacks. Getting man-for-man pressure off the ball for Chelsea as well. Had Lavia doing this really well, sort of putting that first phase of pressure on. The wingers again, Neto and Madueke, both really industrious in this game. Worked hard, worked back and forth very, very well. Palmer and Jackson as well as that too. They're really getting the synergy in terms of when to press, which side to lock off the pitch. Jackson and Palmer, I'm really enjoying that sort of partnership on and off the ball, in fact. This pitch is a bit blurry, but this sort of shows that again, Jackson dropping into that space, and you've actually got Neto, Palmer, and Madueke. I think we might have another picture. I think it's the same replay, but as you can see, Hall can't go all the way here or all the way here because he's technically got to watch Madueke and both, which then means that Jackson can pin this central man. Again, he's turned these 2 men. This is something Jackson's amazing at, receiving in and around these areas and turning and spinning away. Palmer and Neto, as Maresca said, he wanted to attack this side of the pitch. You've got a 2v2 if you just cut it off sort of here. I was about to do it with my hand, but you wouldn't have been able to see it. So by having that sort of penetrative side of the pitch of Palmer and Neto, this instantly gave Chelsea, I think this was the goal, but it ended up being offside. But Jackson's ability to sort of drop into these areas, I mean, once he beats his man, it's essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Chelsea versus that back four of Newcastle, because these two are out the game once Jackson's turned them. So again, just the ability to turn these attacks into overloads, just from the quality of how he can turn on the ball. This again, the pressing scheme, Lavia sort of pushed up with the wingers, almost forming this 2-3. And again, Casado's behind, so it's almost a 2-3-1, looking a bit like a diamond midfield behind the two strikers, with Lavia at the tip, and then Casado sort of out of picture here as well, who would usually be joined by one of the more aggressive defenders who can jump up and also back up that press. Sometimes it's Cole, sometimes it's Fofana, sometimes it's Gusto, even sometimes it was Reece. And they rotate that really well, and that's a very sort of key figure of a Maresca's side, and it was for Leicester too. So it's really good to see that, and I think it's working really well, having Lavia and Casado in there to win those second balls, and just both of them in there together. It means if they do manage to get past one, the ground covering of both of them put together is just ridiculous. It's really hard to win the ball when they're both in the vicinity of it, or for the other team. Here though, again, got that back four pivot in here. Palmer is in and around here. Sanchez can go direct. Again, look though, this was the point of this image was actually more so to sort of show Gusto's role, and just he's dragging Joelinton away from play. Look at how direct he's been. He's replaced Jackson. Jackson's here again. Jackson and Palmer in these sort of half spaces, looking to turn on the ball and play directly. You've got the two wingers. They're staying high and wide. That's their job. Pin these defenders back. But Gusto, he knows that if Jackson's going to pop into this space, I'll go and I'll drag them away and I'll take Joelinton away. So there is Jackson with a defender who's coming into territory he doesn't want to be in. So again, really clever, really good intricate movements and rotations from Chelsea. So it's again seeing this sort of 3-3-4. This time Gusto pushed up higher, Palmer in this pocket. We spoke about this before, so we don't have to go into too much detail. Either side can do this. If Palmer was further up, Jackson was over to the right, and Gusto was deeper, still be a 3-3-4, just with different. It depends which of Gusto or Palmer drops in to be that +1, but we spoke about that a lot already. But that worked really well. We saw that a few times in the game. Again, the pressing structure, almost a 4-4-2 at times, but again, that hexagon idea with Chelsea. So we saw that last time against Liverpool as well. The 4-2 base. Again, you see Palmer in the picture. He's dragging his man in. Next image, Jackson's come deep, bringing a centre-back into an area he does not want to be in. And again, Jackson is just perfect in this area at turning and creating. And this pass, just wow. I just had to put a screenshot in there for it, because utterly outrageous from Palmer to play that pass. Neto, that pacing behind really helped when they're sort of pushing and playing that high line. And when you have a player like Palmer who can literally on a sixpence just turn and put that in behind, him and Jackson make that attack. And then Palmer, Neto and Jackson, just the three of them. That is just perfect, and just a lovely goal to see. We're one of the best teams in the world in transition at the minute, just with the pace and the quality of. We've got a really good blend of the quality of passing, but also runners in behind, with the likes of Neto, Madueke, Mudryk if he's playing, Jackson, even the likes of Nkunku. They're clever with their runs in behind. They're maybe not seen as the most willing runners, but they will do it, and they're clever with how they make those runs. So there's a lot of legs in the team, and Palmer just ability to pick it out, unbelievable. Again, a bit of a deeper version here of the 4, with the Sanchez involved, with that 3 with the split centre backs, the 2 full backs, staggered pivot, but again it's going to leave spaces, and this time it's Madueke actually driving inside. And again, it's just sort of these confusions, like Lewis Hall doesn't know whether to fully continue and follow in, so if not, he'll drop off again and he'll be followed inside by this man, and it just creates these little nice rotations where it's leaving Newcastle up for decision making. And when decisions have to be made on the spot, of course, that is when things are working well, because if their decision making isn't on point, then you're going to create from that, or you're going to benefit from that. Palmer this time again checking his shoulder, able to come inside. As you can see on this side of the pitch, Gusto, he's being marked here, marked here, marked here. This is now open. I'll receive. As soon as you're going to go put pressure to make sure this ball can't go over to Reece James, he's trying to apply pressure here. Opens that gap. Palmer can receive. And this is the figure piece of the video, right? Because it got to the point where we was just carving into these areas so easily, especially because one of the midfield three of Newcastle was basically just following Gusto on this right hand side. And you've got to expect that they thought Palmer was going to be there. So part of the game plan would have been to have Palmer on that side, and they wanted to sort of almost mark him out of the game, very much like what happened in the Liverpool game with how Curtis Jones was following him, right? So instead, he's over this side today, and therefore he's the open man. Gusto's the one being sort of man marked, pinned, or man marked. Palmer is free, so now they're just trying to completely shut off this middle of the pitch, and I love this image. I thought it was brilliant. Almost like 1-5-4. The DM, instead of sort of playing with, again, so if you was to sort of drop this player into here where my arrow is, as we said the other day, you'd have these two players either side. So if this man, imagine this is a Newcastle player, the arrow, if he's over here, then Gusto's the free man. If he's here, he's not making a single decision, and you both can receive the pass. If he's over here, Palmer's the free man. So instead, by just trying to completely stop off this sort of pass through the middle and completely just try to force it either on the outsides, they're both free if that ball can be played through. Yes, these are tight gaps. These are hard passes to play. But this is just where the industry of both Caicedo and Lavia, especially Lavia in this situation, he manages to pocket that through and just just look at the disarray straight away. Look at the distances between that five. All it took was a little bit of ball manipulation. He's got his foot on the ball and he sort of just drags it one way, drags it the other way, and just puts a clever little ball into Palmer. And it's just those brave moments, because if that ball breaks, Chelsea are underloaded on the counter-attack. You'd technically have 6 versus what you'd assume is 1, 2, and then 3 defenders. The 6v5 for Newcastle. But they trust their ability, and Maresca trusts them to make those passes, and it's brilliant. So yeah, Palmer receives on the turn, he's away. Again, same thing. Palmer's managing to put himself onto a centre-back. He's not marked by one of these guys because, again, Gusto is, Caicedo is, Lavia is. That's the midfield three of Newcastle. So that's the 3 midfielders they're marking. Palmer's the free man. So when he drops off deeper, either a centre-back gets dragged out and Jackson has really good space in the middle to attack in a 1v1 directly, or they don't come out because they're scared of what Jackson can do with running behind, and Palmer is now the free receiver. Not the man you want to be the free receiver in the form he's in. And this is another thing I wanted to highlight. How good have Chelsea become in terms of just the quick instinctive movements to go from one side of the pitch to the other, because of they know the positioning of every single player. And this was done in seconds. You're talking Reece James inside Lavia. Within 2 touches, he's over to Caicedo. Within 2 touches, Caicedo's over to Gusto, who again is in acres of space. And then between then, Gusto over to Madueke once Hall sort of applies a little bit of pressure to that space. Madueke is now 1v1. You're talking 4 passes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're out on the opposite wing in a 1v1 isolation. And look, you're talking 3 seconds. Well, like 4 or 5 seconds by the time it actually gets to Madueke. But really wanted to highlight the patterns of play that we're seeing and how quickly they're stringing together from Maresca, and that positional system that he's applying is really helping us to sort of move the ball from one end of the pitch to the other and find those 1v1 isolations where we can cause damage. So this is another different sort of pressing structure. Again, Palmer's come deeper this time. So you got the 3 almost waiting to, he's going to apply pressure here, he's going to apply pressure here, he's going to apply pressure here. And you got 3 in the middle, they're man for man as well. So Gusto's out the picture, but he's actually here in this. Nearly 30 seconds later, this is actually where the goal comes from. So they press a little bit higher. This ball ends up turning over, and Lavia, Caicedo both miss their duels. And this is probably like one of the only times it happened during the game where they both miss a duel in this sort of vicinity, which is what we were talking about earlier. And it leaves Jolinton, I think it was Jolinton, open. And this sort of leaves Fofana's already coming out to try and close that space. He's maybe a little bit off the pace there too. And it does lead to the goal, where we will say, I think James is in the wrong here for me. I think he's trying to pass this man on. He's trying to almost pass this man onto Colwill, and because he's obviously aware that he's got 2 on his back shoulder, which I completely understand. But clearly there was a communication issue with that. Either Cole doesn't know he's coming, or Colwell is obviously, he's got a man here that he's watching, and just the communication here wasn't perfect. Reece can actually see that though, Colwell can't. So if he's not sort of responding to that man being passed on, Reece has to be the one to get across. And again, Colwell can't make the block, but Reece is too far behind the play there for me. So it's unfortunate, but I think between them two, that has to be communicated better. And again, these things are going to happen, so it's not a bad thing. And I think the fact that this is the only goal they scored in this game, and it's quite clear to see that it was just an error, a poor defensive error that can be solved with communication. So I wouldn't be too disheartened about that, especially with the result. If it ended 1-1 or Newcastle went on to win the game, then maybe we'd be looking at it in a bit of a different light. But we'll continue. And again, Cole, these passes, these line breakers, unbelievable. You look, this is again the 1 and the 4. So you got the one else, the one other behind the ball. But even Gusto, he's already creeping into this space to become a free option. They're man for man with these two. He's ready to sort of apply pressure to Reece, but Cole was just going to play that ball straight into that space where Jackson, again, this is that pentagon we're talking about. Palmer and Gusto are able to stretch both sides really wide so that Jackson, he knows that he can drop into this space, and he's confident either one of these defenders follow him, he can spin them because he's got the beating of both of them. And this was working perfectly throughout the whole game. And this pentagon, again, this is something that I spoke about with Maresca when he first joined the club. It's something that he likes to do. He likes to have that centre forward. If it will depend on opposition, some opposition, it's better for the striker to pin those defenders back so they don't come into that space. But against some of them, we've seen it already. It's really good to use this striker in this way so that you can then turn and have the wingers as your main outlets. And again, this worked perfectly. This one, you can just see again that 3, the 2, forming the box with Gusto and Palmer behind that line of 5. And they're just able to play through it. And this was just perfect throughout the whole game. Cole again finding Palmer, free man, because we can't see it in picture here, but I'm pretty sure Gusto is got the other man on him. Jolinton over here with Gusto, which means the defenders had to come out. Palmer, absolutely outrageous again. Little flick round the corner. He's away. And people said it was a fluke in the other game where he did it. I can't think which game it was now where he nearly scored. Was it Forest, maybe, when he did it? And now he's done it again. It's becoming a signature move for him. So we'll see how many more times he does that this season, and we can start calling it the Palmer turn or the Palmer flick. Box or the Pentagon midfield again with the back 3. Look at the space he's in here. That they're already pointing. They know like somebody's got to pick Jackson up, but at this point, Palmer's been receiving the ball in between the lines, so we need to stop him. Gusto's been receiving the ball between the lines. We need to stop him. We've got the 1, we've got the 4, and we've technically got the 1. But look, the centre back's already aggressive because he's seen Jackson's gone in there, but he's still indecisive on where he's going to go. He doesn't know, because if Gusto receives the ball behind as well, then Chelsea are going to have a 5v4 against the attack. So just constant outnumberings and the pressure that all 3 of these guys in that sort of front across the box or pentagon with Maresca and Neto out wide that they caused Newcastle's midfield. Just really, really good. And we've got some stats here. You can sort of pause and take a look if you like. This is from the whole game, but we've obviously that was the first half that we covered. In this game, I haven't got Lavia up on screen either, but I thought he was brilliant. Reece James, so good in this game. We're going to talk about a few sort of defensive moments he had at the end of the game as well. Moise Caicedo in there with Lavia, just second balls, controlling the tempo, really good. Pedro Neto, I thought he was brilliant on the left. Again, the assist, so good, but just the threatening speed in behind, 3 key passes, being involved, dribble attempts, obviously hit the post, hit the woodwork. That was the header in the second half. Really, really good in this game. This is for the Chelsea goal. So this was really nice to see because you can actually see 5 men behind the ball here, but Cole's the one that's going to be aggressive when that ball comes into this area of the pitch. Lavia, he's already going to be collapsing backwards, and what you're going to see is Cole's going to get the first touch on Isaac. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to win that ball, exactly what Maresca wants him to do. Wins it in here. And because Lavia is already retreating, and again, he's an agile he's good in those tight spaces at winning the ball back and getting that touch, and just it's ground covering, but it's dueling. It's all of these things sort of merged into one, and that tight space sort of manipulation. He gets the touch, and then Palmer's away. And he drives it all the way forward, and he gets the goal. And it's really class from all 3 of them: Colwell, Lavia, and then Palmer, of course. Like, just phenomenal. Gives Chelsea a lead, and now again we're happy. We're in the driver's seat. we can start to slow the game down. They're dropping into this 1-5 again. Chelsea have got they're in the ascendancy. They can slow it down. They can play. And look how when Chelsea sort of go backwards, so we're in and around here, they take it backwards, maybe 10 yards, and instantly, where some players are trying to follow and apply pressure on the ball, some are still sitting off. This is where it opens up to play that pass. These passing gates are much bigger because of the movement. Cole can now play that pass, something we said in the first half, we said it all season, just outrageous at. Finds Palmer, happy days, we're through again. 1-5, can you find your way through? Gusto, he's the one in space. This time, again, passing gate small, passing gate fairly small. These are the bigger ones, but again, risky on his right foot to be trying to play that into sort of these areas. So this is the ball. Gusto's the one in space. This time, we're going to pop it into Casado, who again, as these players have got little bits of forward momentum, they're stepping towards the ball. Just going to clip one over into Gusto in space. Perfectly done. He can attack the box. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Madueke's on the outside would be 5. Technically, a 5v4 for Chelsea in that moment. Gusto doesn't do enough with it, but it's these little manipulations in tight spaces that Chelsea are just becoming better and better at with every passing game. And it just seems that no matter what block teams throw at Chelsea, they find ways through, and it's really, really nice to see. This is the momentum change, though. So, again, very Chelsea in this first half. They had that little patch where they scored the goal, but very Chelsea. Really Chelsea again from the goal, and even then controlling the game. But it's about here, which is the next few sort of clips or pictures that we're going to show, where Newcastle did take the ascendancy in terms of momentum and looking like they're going to score. I do still think Chelsea took the sting out of the games in moments fairly well, but there was chances for Newcastle. And a lot of it did just come from Chelsea sort of dropping off, they're in that 2-1, that driving seat, they're in that game state of winning. And we dropped off a little bit into that 4-4-2 that we've seen quite a bit in our own half. Both these wingers ready to, again, it's a narrow back four, so they've got to be ready to cover those channels and help defend. Away from defending, but I just wanted to point this out as well, because nobody seems to have mentioned it. Reece James being on this left-hand side, as interesting as it is, something we didn't really see, but something we could see if he ever plays this role again, or if he gathers consistent minutes at this role ever, with Gusto playing well or with other injuries, whatever. The in-swinger on his right foot from this area, an in-swinger is becoming one of the most lethal weapons in the game. You see Yamal, Elise, some of the best at it from that sort of left-hand channel. This could become a real zone for Reece James whenever he's on that left-hand side. And this was the only real sort of time we saw it. And this wasn't even really an in-swinger. It was more of a clip ball towards that back post. But we're gonna keep an eye on that zone for Reece James. Really good pressure from Chelsea here to again force that ball long. Casado covering here. Lavia, they've trapped off one side of the pitch. In which case, Casado's ready to apply pressure this end as well, but he is also watching the ball for Jolinton. Fofana jumps perfectly into that space, which is the open space. Does well, anticipates, wins the ball. He does, though, technically, like he wins it, then falls over, makes a little mistake, and then Newcastle are away off of that. So Chelsea do need to be careful because that does leave them in a 5v4, and it's little mistakes where you have to get that pressing correct, and they did. The pressing structure of this move was fine, but then once you then either regain the ball or you're going to make contact, it's really important what you're going to do with it next is you either take a touch away, so sort of even if his touch is away towards Neto has a chance to battle for the second ball. But if they can sort of win the ball here, where he basically slips and they're away with nobody really in vicinity to help in the counter press of that area, then Chelsea can be in trouble because, as you can see, 5v4. Luckily, they regroup really well. Fofana gets back quickly. Lavia gets back quickly. That's the good of having these sorts of players on the pitch. Hard workers who can cover ground well, and that's part of their job. And they do it well here. And Chelsea recover, and no harm done. This one, if I remember correctly, yes, this was the Reece James block. So again, this is where Newcastle are starting to sustain a bit more pressure, and Isaac has got he's pinned Fofana. I think it's Cole jumped out in this scenario. Then you got Reece over here, Gusto over here. So sort of like we saw in the first half with Chelsea, you got that 3v3 on the back line, man for man. And then in the middle of the pitch, Chelsea actually have an overload in the middle of the pitch. But if that ball does come through to Isaac, which it does, and then Newcastle are able to get their players forward, to play the ball forward, Jolinton is in an easy wide position to receive the ball. Gusto's going to get dragged out, as you can see here. Neto's pointing because he knows that ball's going to go into there. Casado needs to follow him because he actually doesn't, and he's a bit late on the follow, which allows this ball to get played into this area of the pitch, and then that ball can come across. This time, Reece James is actually able to deal with it. So he's actually learnt from that first half mistake. He's covering that sort of middle of the goal much better in this instance. Makes the block. Perfectly done. And again, this, at the end of the game, is the last bit that we're going to end it on, because Reece James did it really well here too. Gets back, defends the box, puts it over the bar for a header. And this is the picture that we all want to end it on, because that bit of leadership from Colwell and Reece, and showing those moments at the end of the game where, if anything, he's learnt from that mistake in the first half, if you want to call it a mistake, and he's defending the box with more urgency and getting rid. And those few little moments from Reece at the end were really important to winning the game. Colwell knew it. Reece, as the captain, you looked like he really responded to those messages made from Maresca during the week. And I think that overall, Chelsea did really well in this game despite the momentum being in Newcastle's favour, these were their only real chances. You had that Isaac one where he went for on goal, but I didn't include that because I'm so sure that was a foul on Fofana, to the point I don't even really want to analyse it, because I don't think there's much to it. I genuinely think that Isaac fouls Fofana and then goes round Sanchez and luckily doesn't score anyway. But I didn't even want to get into that because that really annoyed me. I think that was quite a clear foul on Fofana. So apart from that, I think Chelsea did well to sort of see out the game. There was little patches within those momentum periods where Chelsea did slow it down for 2 or 3 minutes. At times, maybe Casado or Lavia went a little bit too long and forced it a tiny bit from minutes 60 to 90, or at least until Lavia went off, and then Casado and Enzo a little bit. But they managed to slow the game down. We had chances at the end again with the Nkunku penalty claim, which again, I also don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a bit soft. So no worries with that. But Chelsea won the game 2-1. Happy days. We face Newcastle again tomorrow when I'm recording this. So I'm actually going to do a stream tomorrow where we get the tactics board out, speak about this game a little bit more. We'll preview tomorrow's game as well during the day. The team that we think we're going to see, if Newcastle make any tweaks to their out-of-possession schemes to try and stop Chelsea, if there'll be any new threats with the likes of maybe Anthony Gordon or someone starting the game. We'll speak about all that tomorrow in the stream. Please do drop a like if you haven't already. Do show some support on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already as well. And as I said, we'll see you in tomorrow's stream for the Chelsea-Newcastle preview as we are playing them again. So take care, and I'll see you guys next time.